Well, hello everyone. This is I'm greeting you from the frigid Northeast today. My name's Andy Moore, and welcome to this week's KM World Magazine webcast series event. I'm publisher of KM World Magazine. I'll be the host and moderator today, but the guys talking today are pretty much going to take over the show. Today's presentation, however, is part of an ongoing series. Please join us for each of these events. They are usually on Tuesdays, but you have to check our website, check your email for the schedule of these educational live interactive web events. And I want to underscore interactive because I want you guys to get involved today. I'm pleased to welcome all of you to today's installment, which we call Knowledge Solutions from Mobile Devices, Making Smartphones Even Smarter. Now, these statistics actually, I don't know, kind of floored me, but there are more than 1/4 of the entire global population that will use smartphones next year. And by 2018, there would be more than 2.5 billion, that's with a B, consumers worldwide. For many, it is their only access to the Internet for web self-service. So here's what we're going to examine in today's event. Are your customers getting a quality mobile experience? That's a question. Can your remote workers readily access knowledge on any device? Those are internal workers. And how many customers do you think you'll lose because they want better mobile service options? If your answer was no or not sure to any of those questions, we'll look forward to solving those for you today. One thing we do know, your customers are mobile. The question is your business ready to go mobile? Just as a heads up, there will be a rich interactive Q&A session after these presentations. You can ask your questions anytime during the event by entering it into the text box on your screen and hitting the submit button. I'll read your questions aloud, but if yours isn't asked during the event, don't worry. We will get you an answer offline after the event. So every question is valid, so please ask your questions. We've got a team today. I'm not going to go too much into their bios. You can read about their bios on the screen. But here's what we've got going on. We got Chris Hall. He's Chief Marketing Officer at Transversal. We've got Neal Haraguchi. Sorry, I knew I'd mess that up. Neal Haraguchi. He's Director of Enterprise Sales at Transversal, and Chris Chilvers, calling from the UK, and he's Senior Solutions Engineer for Transversal. I'm going to get out of the way so I don't mess it up anymore, and I'll let Chris Hall take it from here.
Thank you, Andy. And thanks all for attending today, whether it's morning, afternoon, sunny or snowy. And I see our first question from Lee came in. Didn't think that North Carolina would be sunny this time of year, but welcome to the snow. Hopefully you don't get the frigid cold behind it, but thanks for sticking it on with us today. We've got an action-packed, not an action-packed, but information-packed event for you today. We thought we'd take it in two pieces. For the first half of the webinar, we'll discuss what it means from a mobile strategy around the business and what knowledge does from a business around mobile strategies. The second half, we'll talk about the consumer experience and how consumers rate mobile, what their demands are. But there's three presenters on the phone today, and I thought I'd break it up into three spots. So as Chief Marketing Officer, I'm going to take the business perspective. So I'll be giving you the business perspective, the why mobile, the why knowledge management, and the why now, market trends, investments, and strategies. When I'm done my section, I'll transfer it over to my colleague, Neal Haraguchi, who will be going over the transversal perspective. So what we're doing as an organization to make it easier for business and consumers to be on mobile, some of our best practices, our point of view, and some unique features. Now, it would be kind of not prudent of us to be talking about it, but we wanted to show it to you as well. So Chris Chilvers will take the baton after Neal to talk about it from a purely product perspective on how Transversal actually does it. Some live demos and some recorded demos because we have some mobile stuff and didn't want to try too many technologies over a hosted webinar. So kind of bear with us. We hope everything goes smoothly, but we're sure you'll have a fun ride. So the first thing, Andy talked about it as well. We're going to talk about it from a business perspective on how we can make it easier for business to go mobile. But first of all, I wanted to give you kind of the size of the market opportunity. So I'll be covering kind of three sections in my first section on the business: the size of the mobile opportunity, the impact of not adapting a mobile strategy, and then why knowledge is essential from a mobile strategy standpoint. Andy already talked about the size of the marketplace, and I'll kind of give you some compelling stuff too. Last year alone, the number of mobile connected devices exceeded the number of people on Earth. That's not big. That's tremendously huge. And I think most of us on the phone can understand that not everyone in the world has a mobile connected device, but most of us on the phone, I would say if I did a poll average, and we probably should have done one pretty quickly, would have been fun, is I would imagine we're about a little over 2, if not 2.5 of us on the phone have a couple of different mobile connected devices. So that kind of outnumbers what's going on there. So, starting off last year, number of mobile connected devices exceeded the people on Earth, and Andy already talked about this, but next year, more than 1/4 of the world's population will be using smartphones. The reason I wanted to identify this, not from the standpoint of the numbers, but I think the next slide pretty much tells it all for us. And for many of those customers, it is their only device to access the internet for web self-service. Most of us can understand today, we most have our dinner conversations with our kids today over text, even when we're sitting at dinner. But we know we have a connected millennial generation coming on our doorstep. We know that it's going to be their primary device for accessing the internet. What can we do to adopt that pretty quickly is going to be pretty important. Accenture does a study every year, and as a marketer, it's pretty important to me. It's a consumer pulse survey. And for the past 5 years, I've been watching this survey, and this is the first year mobile came to the docket. And they're kind of transitioning between omni-channel understanding and how that means to mobile, but some pretty compelling statistics. From a seamless experience perspective, and I think we all have somewhat an omni-channel experience, the average number of channels that customers were using to prospect with a company, whether they're buying an application or researching a product or solution, was 6. Again, this is a survey done to over 2,000 customers and 200 companies. I thought that was huge. They understand that they find it frustrating when they're presented with inconsistent offers, 65% of them. A very interesting stat is 45% decided to vote with their feet when saying offering better service via mobile would have made a difference in their decision to switch. Huge compelling stats here. 75% of the customers surveyed use more than one online channel when researching a company's products and services. 38% of those customers, almost a little over a quarter, almost half, use mobile devices to access these channels, and 66% decided to switch companies due to poor service last year. So let's take this down a notch and kind of dissect. By the way, before I take it to that slide, what's the cost of that? So Accenture actually called their whole entire report in 2014 when it was published, but the study was done in 2013 called The Switching Economy. And the demands of a more dynamic, empowered consumer puts corporate revenue potential in jeopardy to the tune of about $5.9 trillion. In the UK, it was a little under a trillion, and in the US, it was about 1.1 to 1.3 trillion with Canada added to that. Pretty awesome statistic that customers will not tolerate poor customer service. So the question is to why. Why are customers leaving? I think that the most compelling stat for me in our space, in the knowledge management space, is that their number one issue has been the same for the past 5 years. And if you look at it on the left-hand side, the number one issue has been resolving my issue in first contact. And simply put, customers just want answers. But at the end of the day, the consumers that were surveyed say that companies could have done something to prevent them from switching. If I looked at the other ones, they wanted to be contacted proactively. Everyone wants some level of proactive interaction with a company, a brand that we're kind of tied to. They do want some reward and recognition. I think that's pretty standard nowadays. But I think the next one, when he gets to mobile, in the top 4, number 4, top 5, is offered me better service and support options via mobile devices. And if you looked at them, 45% that would have made an impact on their decision to switch to providers. 31% are on the fence. Add those two together, you almost have 70% being impacted by some level of mobile solutions, service solutions being across mobile devices. Even further, what are their demands? Of those customer surveys, what were their demands in regards to service every year? And 79% of those customer surveys said they had a much higher expectation of service and support to be easier and more convenient to obtain this year versus last year. And I want to kind of drill down into what the top 4 reasons were. So first one's pretty straightforward. I expect customer service to be easier and more easy to obtain. On the next one, I expect customer service representatives to be more knowledgeable. And the next one, I expect service to be faster. And the last one, I expect more options for obtaining services, such as phone, online, and location. So what I wanted to do is say, those things look pretty familiar from the pains our customers are talking to. We go through the purchasing decision with our customers and how knowledge addresses these demands. So what I've done is kind of mapped what we consider kind of knowledge categories, supply and demand, to the top 4 things Accenture identified that customers wanted. So I would look at when customers are asking us, I expect customer service to be easier and more convenient to obtain, we just need to increase their access to knowledge in our organization. The next one, I expect customer service support representatives and service representatives and sales associates to be better knowledgeable, knowledge proficiency. Agents and employees need knowledge as well. The next one, I expect it to be faster and easier, knowledge availability. And the last one, I expect more options for obtaining service. It's all about enabling the channels to be knowledge. So for us, it kind of fits. What customers are looking for most is all around the knowledge that you have in your organization today. So when I look at what knowledge can do for your customers and what Transversal does is we improve knowledge access by making and finding information easier and more convenient for consumers and agents to obtain this knowledge. We increase the knowledge proficiency by snapping knowledge into the desktops of what agents are using to turn every employee, any trainee, into a seasoned expert. The last 2, apologies, I flip-flopped them. Expand knowledge availability is all about empowering your support organization to respond faster than ever before, and accelerating your knowledge enablement is all about turning every channel, such as mobile device, on with ease. Now, there's 3 different business, when people put together business justifications, ROIs, or business cases for knowledge, we kind of look at it in 3 areas. I'm being very conservative in my numbers, having worked for different service and knowledge organizations over the past 20 years. The numbers that I put in front of you here are numbers that I've aggregated and averaged over the past 20 years of being in this business. Gartner put out a great report last year around knowledge management specifically. If you're interested, please contact one of us at Transversal. We'll be happy to share that report with you. And the numbers are much more compelling and more higher. But from my perspective, sorry about using the word more higher, but they're higher. I wanted to be conservative, and this is what we're looking at in the areas of agent productivity, increasing their average handle time 28%. And I'd even counsel that under agent productivity, just the fact of making your call times or your interaction times with your customers more consistent, being all the agents having the same tools, makes all the other tools around agent productivity and workforce management and forecasting much more predictive. From a cost savings, some of the stuff that you'll see today, from expanding it out to all of our customers via mobile devices, increasing the number of deflections we're getting. So whether you call it, I think the new phrase I've heard lately is demand management around customer service, or whether you call it case avoidance or call avoidance, the cost savings is huge. And the improved results kind of speak for themselves. But without further ado, I thought I'd pass it off for Neal Haraguchi to give you the Transversal perspective around our mobile strategies. Neal.
All right. So thanks, Chris. As Chris went through, he ran through a lot of the business perspective or the business case for knowledge management. What I'm going to talk about is what makes Transversal unique. Why do we do what we do, and why are we passionate about it? And then I'll also spend a little bit of time going over the importance of web self-service because, of course, from the perspective of mobile customers or mobile users, they are not the internal users. These are the people who are going to be using and trying to self-serve and find answers on their own. So, what is the Transversal perspective on customer support? In a nutshell, what it is that it was difficult before to provide good help. Now with the omni-channel world, I'm missing the L there, it's more challenging. So before there was a findability issue. It was difficult to find the right answer. Now, in addition to having issues finding the right answer, it's a consistency issue. Are we giving the same answer across channels? So what we do well, Transversal, our passion is to make it easy for businesses to connect people to knowledge. We feel we have a better, a more innovative way for knowledge management and to allow customers to self-serve. And we'll go through those points here and demonstrate them. Chris Chilvers will also demonstrate them. So in the Transversal solution, what do we have? Probably one of our key differentiators is semantic search. You guys have probably are all familiar with the saying, you could have the best content in the world, but if you can't find the answer within the content, then it's useless. So this core technology of ours was developed at Cambridge University, and I actually have a slide coming up where we'll go into more detail into what makes it different and what makes it better. The next 2 points are kind of tied together. Within Transversal, we have a centralized knowledge repository. Reason for that being is that we feel strongly that knowledge should be central to the enterprise. We see a lot of companies have their support knowledge in their CRM system, their HR type knowledge in a HCM system, and when it comes down to helping people do their jobs and find answers and help customers find answers, we feel that a centralized knowledge repository is important. Of course, that goes hand in hand with content management functionality. We offer a full audit trail so you can see who's changed what. Let's say you get a customer that asks you or states that they saw something on your support site 6 months ago. You can check what version was live then, and of course we have all of the security and permission capabilities. We'll talk a little bit more in a slide coming up on smart and flexible user design. Too often there is a perspective that the user interface, we can build it. Well, Transversal's thought about the user interface, and we have some features that provide best practices and also make the user experience better. Finally, to close the loop, you need analytics, and we'll talk a little bit more about having actionable insights. So it's not just providing data in maybe usage, but also who's providing the content, what are people searching on, where are the knowledge gaps, how can we iterate and improve the knowledge base. So I'll take a moment to talk about semantic search. Again, this is one of our key differentiators. It's something that was developed at Cambridge University. The science, what we call the memory engine, is that it mimics the behavior of how seasoned employees think. And you could always, because most of us are in customer service, customer support, you can replace seasoned employees by a seasoned customer service rep. Newbies are going to be answering questions, basically parroting or repeating keywords that they hear from the customer. Whereas if you have a more tenured customer service rep, they have that experience and knowledge to derive more of the context and use intention versus words. So what we've done with our semantic search is that we have the ability to understand intent and content. The reason for this is, of course, the way that you may ask a question is going to use different words or keywords than the way I may ask the question, even though we're asking about the same thing. So, the memory engine matches meaning and not keywords, and what this results in is extremely accurate search results, much better than what you would see with just a simple keyword search. Next, I talked about the smart and flexible user interface. A part of that is responsive web design. Our user interfaces do follow, are responsive and follow responsive web design best practices. For those of you that may not be as familiar, Chris Chilvers is going to demonstrate this, but it allows us to have one user interface that can adapt to different real estate on different devices, whether that be a mobile phone, a desktop, or a tablet. What that means to you as a knowledge manager is that from a UI perspective, you don't need to manage multiple deployments. You don't need to worry about inconsistencies between different UIs. There's a consistency there. Now, in the second section, we're going to talk a little bit more about, is responsive web design enough for you to be using knowledge management for mobile customers, and we'll dive deeper into that section. So to summarize my portion here on the first half, how do you increase self-service effectiveness? So first of all is you improve the search accuracy. We have a semantic search engine, and customers can't self-service if they can't find their answer. Centralized knowledge base, making sure that you have one knowledge base such that you're consistent in the answers that you're giving to your customers regardless of the channel they're using. And then easier deployment. If you do have a responsive UI, then it's easier to manage, and you ensure that you get that consistency. So next I'm going to hand it over to Chris Chilvers, who is going to provide you guys a little bit more of a peek at these features.
Thank you, Neal. I guess I get to do the fun part. I get to show you one of our live deployments. Apologies if there's any latency issues. As I say, it is a live site, so it is the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So I'm going to demonstrate the BBC iPlayer, which is an on-demand service for users to be able to go in and watch programs later from a multitude of devices. We're going to see how Transversal's taken that to the responsive design and taken that into account to cater for all users. And then I'm going to show a very, very quick demo video into how they appear side by side. So I'm just going to navigate now to my screen. Okay, so in the instance of the iPlayer, the knowledge base is accessible via the Help and FAQ link in the bottom right-hand side of the corner here. I think it's important that we cover web self-service in the first instance. Web self-service should be something that's catered for a user that comes in via a responsive site, whether they come in through an application, something which we'll cover later, or whether that's somebody who's coming through the desktop. So I'm just going to access the BBC iPlayer site and give you a quick tour of the key features that are stereotypically within our offerings. You have at the top of the page, you have a search bar, which is our semantic contextual search, which Neal went into a little detail about. We have the ability here to filter our content and drill down by category. And then we have the popular articles. And those popular articles are naturally ordered by the amount of usage that they're receiving. Something which is pretty much out of the box functionality, not something that has to be pre-configured. Okay. So just navigated into an article which has been flagged as a latest news item, and we can see here we have a question and body part of the article itself. Within here we can see that we have different types of text, so just focusing very, very briefly on the content management elements of it is something which is all part of our administration console, which operates in a controlled versioned environment and subsequently has a full audit trail. Okay. Down the bottom of the page, we have related, in this case, related FAQs, which are actually smart links. Again, articles that are appended to the particular knowledge base article that you're viewing at that moment in time. It's kind of like an automated search, something that doesn't, again, have to be administered in any way whatsoever. Okay, so how do we make the knowledge content itself discoverable? So primarily you have the ability to navigate by a platform in this case, so whether it's mobile, whether it's computer, and then via the platform itself to drill down and bring back relevant content applicable to how the user is searching. And then we have the core search itself. So in this case, we have the ability to insert a keyword, insert an abbreviation, or as you may naturally ask, a question. And all of those are things which our core technology will understand. So I can insert a phrase, for example, so using Internet Explorer. And we can see that some of the suggestions that are made here, which is our search ahead functionality, incorporate Internet browsers, which we know Internet Explorer is. So if we actually change that to IE8, for example, our semantic search automatically knows that Internet Explorer 8 is also abbreviated as IE8. And again, focusing back on the amount of dictionaries, upkeep on dictionaries, it is something which the technology will understand as the user is inserting the search query. Okay, I'm just going to act as if I'm a user coming to the site and I'm wanting to know how to watch an on-demand show later. So how do I save to my computer? Would be a query that I would ask. Okay, so you can see the natural language element of our semantic search working here. We can see that a number of articles have been returned based on downloading. We understand that save to my computer or save is download to my computer, and it all ties together, as you can see, against the knowledge base content that we have here. Okay, so how do I save to my computer? Installing BBC iPlayer downloads. And within here, we have next steps through to take the user, as dictated by the BBC, through to installing and uninstalling BBC iPlayer loads. So we have links within the articles themselves. Again, we can embed multimedia files, such as images, and down the bottom of the page, related FAQs, so smart links that are being brought back based on the article that's being viewed. Okay. So a user may, for example, try to save or download a specific program to their computer, but they may also think that they wish to view it on their mobile. So how do I download to my mobile? And we can see here that we bring back relevant content. Okay. So the user knows that they have an Android, and it clearly shows instructions on how to download the BBC iPlayer to the download. So the user goes ahead, downloads the iPlayer app, and then realizes that they're unable to watch. So they enter another search, trouble watching, problems using iPlayer. If I actually conduct a search, you have the ability to refine specific to a platform. Okay. And all the actions that I'm performing here are captured within the analytics package, something which Neal mentioned earlier. The power of the insight into the user journey is something which the solutions cater for. Okay. So the focus here is on responsive design. So I'm just going to show how the interface adapts depending on the type of user who is accessing from the pending device. So let's say, for example, a user came in from a desktop site. That's what I've been browsing. That's what I've been showing thus far. All we have to do is manipulate the window. We can shrink that down. And we can see that we're starting to look at a tablet in landscape or a tablet in horizontal, in portrait, apologies. And then if we go down even smaller, we can see that the articles themselves have changed within their appearance. And this is more designed towards a mobile user and the functionality in real estate on the screen. Likewise, the images have shrunk down. However, if the user is viewing this in a portrait mode on their mobile device, you will see that the platform has disappeared and that now changed to text. So it's one template set that is applicable to all devices, regardless whether you come in on a mobile device or whether you come in via a desktop. And all the same, an important thing to note here is that all functionality remains the same, and that includes the search ahead capability. Okay. So I'm just going to exit out of my screen very temporarily. And I'm going to go to a short video. Okay, so this video is showing us side by side what it would be for a user navigating to an article which utilizes the core semantic search, which is video skipping on my Air. Our technology understands that Air is an iPad and allows the user to navigate accordingly, whether that be via the search itself, whether that be searching by platform. As you can see, side by side, the desktop and the mobile are producing exactly the same user experience from a functionality perspective. However, there is just a different appearance due to the fact they're accessing on a different device. Okay, so that's just the first live demo that we've got in regards to the responsive. And back to you, Andy.
Tremendous. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to go to a polling question, which we like to ask, so that we can take the temperature of the audience today. Here's what we're asking. Where are you looking to improve such knowledge investment, as we've been talking about today? Are you looking for on the web? Are you looking across mobile devices? Are you looking for a mobile application, maybe for your employees? Are you looking in your contact centers? Or you're just simply here today to research? Now you can, it's a multiple, go ahead and check all that apply kind of a question, but do so, and we'll get back and we'll look at your results in a minute. This is I'm talking to the audience now. On the web, across mobile devices, a mobile application, in the contact center that you have, or maybe plural, and maybe you're just researching and checking it out for now. But in the meantime, I want to remind everyone, while they're thinking about the answers to the question, that we will have a Q&A session in a few moments. And this is a great opportunity to ask these great experts about mobile, about customer service, as it applies to mobile, and just anything that you want to ask. We will ask. We will get your questions, believe me, and we'll get answers to you afterward. So the results are up. Well, I don't know if I'm surprised or not. Certainly a lot of people are just kind of checking it out and they're researching for now. That's a big number. But I'm curious about this answer, and I'll ask Chris this question about how high a number that we got for mobile devices and how to use them. What do you think about that?
I actually like the answers here that I'm seeing. Obviously, we know most people are just researching for the time being, but here we are doing pretty much a mobile web self-service demo, and there are still people looking at it from contact centers. I'm an old contact center guy. I kind of love how this. I hated being on the phone, not having the answers of the answer desk all the time. So I always kind of like making sure that the troops in the field at the front line have the answers. But the interesting thing is the mobile application, and I think as I start taking it through the consumer experience, that's going to be very interesting. So I like what I see. This is a KM audience. There's no dilution whatsoever of where they want information. I kind of like this, Andy. I like what I see.
I like it too, and I'm not surprised. And surprised is not the right word, but I'm pleased that so many people are interested in how to apply mobile to not only their customers' contact, but also I think a lot of this is internal. I think a lot of people are thinking of ways that their employees are using BYOD and mobile devices to do their work.
I do too, Andy. This is a compelling survey. I like it.
Okay. Well, I won't hold you because we got more stuff to cover.
We certainly do, and I'm seeing a lot of questions, and thank you all for being extremely interactive. We hope to get to those at the end, but we're also hoping to give you a lot more information to come here. For those of you seeing delays, depending upon your bandwidth, we told Chris to please continue on at a normal pace. It's hard enough to demo what you're seeing in front of you, let alone trying to delay. So for those of you not seeing the audio track catch up to the video track, apologies. Please watch the replay if you need to see it again. We're pushing technology to its limit.
There will be a replay. Plus, Chris is in the UK, so that may play a role. I don't know whether it does or not.
I just saw a few questions about iPad and people saying blank screens. We apologize. We're trying to do the best we can on cutting-edge technologies. So with that, let's take it to the second part, how we're making it easy for customers. So from the business perspective, I want to talk about what the elements of a strong mobile strategy is. It is around customer service, but I think I'm also going to uncover a lot that retailers have found in mobiles of what consumer demands really are across mobile and kind of how impatient they are from the standpoint of what they're actually demanding. And yes, I'm on the business side, so I want to throw more stats than you care to know, but stats for everything help business justification and sometimes kind of help gauge where you are in your process. So without further ado, let me just drop right into where you are in your mobile self-service strategy today. I think we showed you some really interesting technologies and capabilities that Transversal is providing to allow you to quickly go from web to mobile, and most companies start out with the simple goals of wanting to offer their customer better self-service options across mobile devices. Oops, somebody's clicking my slides, or I clicked them too many times. All right, apologies, folks. And I think we did show you today that responsive design, adaptive content, and some of the things that we're doing are enabling technologies that will certainly help you achieve this strategy. But when I drilled into an interesting report that was done over the holidays, done by Dynatrace, it was some really interesting stuff around what retailers found. That retailers are finding it's not that simple just to kind of mobile enable your customers. So let's start on the left-hand side with their mobile challenges. 80% will abandon an app or a mobile website if it's slow, buggy, or prone to crash. Kind of makes me wonder what the other 20%, why they stick with it. But I guess if you want to buy something bad enough and you're the only retailer, they'll stick with it. The next one is pretty interesting. 46 will shop elsewhere if the app or website fails to load in 3 seconds. So for those of us that are all familiar with the 3-second rule of food on the floor, you now get a new one, which is make sure your app loads in 3 seconds or you're going to abandon half of your customers. And then lastly, you try the best you can as a corporation to strategize and push your customers to mobile, but you know what? Mobile's their easiest way to air their frustrations. So 44% are going to air their frustrations over social media if you don't perform appropriately. So that would kind of make me sit back and go, why the heck do we want to go mobile? But look at the opportunities. And some of the opportunities are kind of eye-opening for me. 26%, a quarter of your customers, surveyed, smartphone and tablet customers will use their devices to make a purchase while in physical stores. So even though they're in the physical store, could take the product up to the cash register, are still buying their product over a tablet or mobile device. 52% of millennials, and this gets real interesting, and I'll drill into it a little bit deeper, will shop more via the devices. Will shop more via their devices than in stores. And 42% will shop more via their tablets this year than next year. The millennial thing is going to play even interesting a little bit further down the line on what they actually prefer. So I guess it isn't that simple, but the opportunity is huge. And the adoption of people consuming more products are 42% increase over last year. And mobile consumers are very demanding. So take a look at what Google did from a consumer surveys over mobile devices and what customers are demanding. 78% just want one or two clicks to get to that more information, and the search bar must be very intuitive and easy to use. Of course, that's Google's bread and butter. It should be. 74% have an option to want an option to go to the mobile website, the non-mobile website versus the website, and they all want it clean and efficient. I think another interesting thing is 66% want the click to call the business. So even though we're trying to leverage a mobile device in a sales environment, even a mobile device in a consumer environment such as card servicing, if it's appropriate for them to use the channel, it makes it real convenient for them to try and self-service, but if they need to engage in some fraudulent behavior or maybe to submit a policy claim or whatnot, it might be beneficial for them to call a call center, and the app just makes it real easy for them to launch. A couple of other things, they want non-scrolling forms and not too many fields, and they want the scrolling in one direction. So consumers know exactly what they want from what they're wanting on those devices. So a lot of what we showed you from the demo perspective that Chris showed you, in the next generation we're going to show you not only are the things that we're doing mobile enabled, but we also thought about the user journey quite a bit as well. Drilling into the next slide. So where are you in your mobile self-service strategy? Do you truly understand what our mobile customers are looking for? Do you understand what makes customers choose a mobile experience versus a different channel? Can you provide the ability to access feedback along the purchase journey decision? Are you including any kind of knowledge along the products that exist there, whether it be product advice, whether it be comparisons, or whether it be in a customer service environment, just making, as they're filling out a form, contextual guided advice for the user and really making knowledge available to them as they're on the mobile device. How would you combat the mobile, digital, and social interruptions along that user journey? What are you doing to keep them engaged in their process? How can your mobile experience the customers help solve their pressing problems? So if you're launching a new mobile app, are you allowing them to kind of self-service themselves in the application itself? How do you uniquely engage customers during each phase? Is there contextual information you should be providing them? Is there a product push you should be sending them? All capabilities that I consider, knowledge that you have that you'd want to serve to your customers at that time. And then how do you introduce new behaviors into the customer journey as the device increases enhancements? So that kind of gets me. It's not a matter of mobile enabling your customers, but almost a mobile-first strategy. I think you're seeing a lot of market terms going in that direction. Couple of things. Do you know what mobile customers value most? So this was done by eDigital Research when they did kind of what customers value most around their customer journey for mobile devices. Search and navigation still remain, this is done over 3 years, remain the top two performing parts of the customer journey for shopping and browsing digitally. Do you know which online service they use most? And I thought this was pretty interesting, even from the poll survey. It's where are customers most using your services? Are they total mobile, which is browser only? It's a total mobile browser, so kind of just responsive design. Or are they total desktop? Or are they going to app, a true embedded application? I think the interesting thing was I thought the purple line, which is total mobile, would be at the top. But the interesting thing is it's the mobile only, the actual company app that customers prefer in a survey done last year. And then another thing, of those mobile customers, do you know what your mobile customers prefer? Really interesting statistics here. 59% of millennials prefer using company-specific mobile apps over a mobile-enabled website. And shoppers will spend more time in a mobile app than a mobile site, and 26% will use their device to make a physical purchase while they're in a physical store. So it's really showing that this next generation is not wanting to be mobile-enabled. They want to go full-force mobile. They want you to embrace a mobile app. They want you to embed information into that mobile app to make that mobile app their trusted source to engage with your organization. So to recap a bit on all the, I think, data I kind of thrown at you from that standpoint of asking you, are you mobile ready? Offering better mobile services improves your chance of keeping valuable customers. For many of those customers, it's their only device to access self-service for your organization. Third, customers expect to obtain easier and faster, and have faster and easier to contain services this year than last year, and they demand a simple and intuitive mobile user journey, especially around search and navigation. And then lastly, more than half prefer using company-specific mobile apps over websites. So when I asked you originally, are you sure you know what you are from a mobile perspective, I'll throw one more stat at you. And yes, bear with me. Last stat, I promise. Gartner estimates that there will be 70 billion mobile application downloads annually as these businesses understand consumers want more mobile, but less than 5% of them will be supported by contextual knowledge. And I just leave you with one lasting question before I turn it over to Neal. Your customers are more than mobile enabled. Are you ready? And with that, I'll turn it over to Neal to give you the transversal perspective.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So my previous section was about self-service in general. So now in this section, I'm going to focus a little bit more on Transversal's mobile perspective, as well as some overall best practices for knowledge management on mobile devices. When we think about the mobile user experience, it's important that, as a best practice, it's important that you think about the mobile consumer, the mobile customer up front. What we see with a lot of knowledge management projects or initiatives is that, as knowledge managers, you spend a lot of your time with the authors and the editors, people who are on the inside. They talk about issues with workflow, with publishing, and it's very easy because you spend a lot of time with these people that their requirements or their needs are more at the forefront. But really, it's the other way around, right? When you guys are developing and implementing knowledge management, you should be thinking about the end consumer in mind. And it's no different for mobile. As Chris mentioned, a lot of mobile-first user interfaces, there's a different mobile user journey, or there's a different user journey for mobile customers, and that should be thought about up front. A part of that, of course, is taking into account the user interface, and it's important that while you're not going to start your design based on user interface, it's important to understand that user interface is not just an afterthought. So Transversal, we have thought about the user interface, and we thought about what can we offer to make the user interface better. In the first section I talked about there is a mentality with user interfaces that we can build it. Well, what are some of the building blocks that make sense so that you don't have to build everything? So a few of the points that we're going to talk deeper, we're going to go into search engine optimization. How do you get customers to your support site? Chilvers search ahead, again, a way that we can help guide users and get people to the right answers. Chris Chilvers did show a little bit of that in the iPlayer demo previously. Smart links, you may know this as related questions, related answers. We'll talk a little bit more about how you suggest related information. And then the client library, as Chris mentioned before. Mobile applications are big, and contextual knowledge within mobile applications is important. So using our client library, that's how you can embed knowledge within your apps. So let's start with search engine optimization. your customers are going to search for an answer, and if they can't find it on your website, well, what do people do? They go to Google, and I did it myself this past weekend. I have a laser printer, and I was trying to configure Google Cloud Print. Couldn't find the answer on the vendor's website, so you go to Google and you see what people are doing on discussion forums. One of our customers, Barclays, actually receives 35% of their support search traffic from Google. So, if your customers are going to be going to Google, let's make sure that we optimize your support website such that you can provide information, knowledge articles from your support site, and more importantly, provide your company's viewpoint or your personal perspective. So we deliver out-of-the-box optimization for search engines, and really it's about being a search SEO-friendly implementation. The next thing, now you've got the customers on the site, and there's actually a screenshot of the demo that Chris Chilvers showed you earlier. Search ahead suggest. You may know this as autocomplete, type ahead, or search prediction. And it's interesting with this feature. If you're familiar with knowledge-centered support, KCS, you're familiar with David Kay. He did a study where he asked people to tell him up front what they're looking for and then watch them use a self-support site. And the search ahead functionality actually is very influential, such that people would actually go and take a suggestion, a search ahead suggestion, even if it was drastically different than what they said or stated that they're looking for up front. So obviously the benefit for mobile is that this means less typing. You're guiding or pushing customers to your answers or answers that you have in your knowledge base. And what makes Transversal different in how we do this is that we're not doing an alphanumeric or a keyword match. What we're actually doing is we're using the memory engine such that we look at concepts. So what somebody is typing, we then match it to concepts such that you may get a search ahead suggestion that alphanumerically does not match. It's not a character string match. We're matching concepts, so it's much more powerful. Next, if we look at smart links, and this is, again, the related answers, related articles. If you have complex services or complex products, you'll often find that people or your customers, when they come to your website or call in, is they may ask a point question to get to a train of thought. So the overall problem or issue they're facing is a lot more complex than what can be described in one question. So what we're doing with smart links is that we're guiding or suggesting associated questions to the article that the customer is looking at. What Transversal does differently here is that we're using, again, our core technology, the memory engine, to dynamically make suggestions. So there's no hard coding involved. You don't have to manage associated articles. What we do is we take the content in the article and then make dynamic suggestions based on that, on what else could be of use, and get the user to a resolution. So to summarize my section here, the second section is, to provide a better mobile experience, you want to reduce the typing because obviously with a lot of the smartphones, it's no longer a full-size keyboard or even a physical keyboard. So features like the search ahead, like the smart links, allow the customers to do less typing, and also at the same time you're guiding customers to your answers. The second and third point here are connected. It's using knowledge within mobile applications, using the client library, but also utilizing user context, whether it be a location, GPS location, or whether it be time of day, what other information you can get from the user if they're logged in, what products they own, such that you're able to provide a better mobile experience. And then the last point is all about analytics. It's important to validate the success of what you're doing with mobile and the success of the mobile user interface. So you want to be sure that your analytic data is able to segregate or separate, mobile versus desktop, the types of users, such that you can effectively see what is happening with your mobile user experience. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Chris Chilvers to provide a few more examples and demonstrations for you.
Thank you, Neal. Hopefully we won't experience any issues with this, because we're just going to show a couple of videos across a couple of mobile sites. As covered by both Neal and Chris, ensuring that your users have an intuitive mobile experience and is essentially simple to use is something which is pretty essential. Ensuring that best practices and techniques to optimize mobile user journeys are part of the thought process and the customer contact strategy. Knowledge base being organized and optimized for SEO purposes, something that will allow users to come directly in from the likes of Google, whether that be via a voice-enabled semantic search. And once they're in the knowledge base environment, that they are offered intuitive smart links to ensure that the solution is providing predictions on what you may require next, which ultimately is improving usability and findability. So the first video I'm going to just touch on here is a very simple user case scenario for Marks & Spencer, which is a UK-based international retailer who interestingly generates 1.25 billion in multi-channel revenue each year. The scenario here is that a user is using Siri to conduct a voice search for next day delivery on a large kitchen appliance, which they are seeking to order. And we can see that the top two results there were actually help articles, and the user goes directly into can I get next day delivery. They like what they see, they provide feedback, they then review the related articles or smart links, and then has a further question, well, what happens if I'm out? The knowledge base answers that. Again, receives a thumbs up. And then the user is sitting in the customers thinking, well, I'd better check to see that they're actually going to deliver to the area I live. And in this case, enters their postcode or zip code. And upon search, you can see that it is delivered because we make a reference via the responsive site direct through to a database hosted by Marks & Spencer's. Okay, so really going beyond responsive is something which I believe is imperative to any offering. More and more now, a lot of companies have a mobile application. The amount of times that I've been to a mobile site and I'm prompted to download the app. So what Transversal offers is a mobile API to allow you to reuse that knowledge base content within your application, which includes type-ahead semantic search, predictive text, which we've seen a couple of times, and even if required, in-app content that is specific to that mobile user, and even handset. Again, similar functionality around smart links and responsive navigation, and we're looking to leverage native phone functions such as speech to text, the location of the user, and incorporate a call to action such as calling a telephone number. Okay, so I'm just going to launch the next video, which is for the Barclaycard app. User logs in, checks the balance, navigates through to the FAQ section. Can browse the articles. Key thing to point here is that the articles that you're seeing there are ordered by popularity. If you had those rendered elsewhere, via desktop, whether it be within a responsive site, then they would remain identical. Customers looking to find the quickest way to pay in this example, or make a payment. And as you change pay to payment, the predictive search ahead suggestions change accordingly. One more being around how to pay, and the other being around ways to pay. Okay, rates the article, automatically captured against this knowledge base article that you're seeing, outputted within the analytics suite, and conducts a further search, which is looking around online payments and protection. And you can see that the top article is around purchase orders protection, even though the user hasn't typed those specific keywords. Within the article, it references calling the contact center and advises where to navigate. Okay. So that kind of just ties off a very quick example of how that's embedded within an application itself. We tend to find that there are two common approaches to various clients embedding contextual knowledge within their applications. One of them would be ensuring that's catered within the design from a responsive perspective to make sure that it can appear within an app browser, alternatively utilizing our API, which is built to have all the functionality that you see, whether it's on a responsive site or a desktop site, across the board. So that's something that which we would always consider. So that kind of wraps up those videos, and back to you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. And we are nearly out of time, but we could go a little bit over, a scooch over. And I'll start with Chris to ask him, we've talked a lot about, in general terms, what businesses do with mobile. But are there specific, let's say, vertical markets or any industries that you can think of that are particularly well suited?
Sure. Yes, there are, Andy. And it might cover off some of the other questions that some of the other participants asked in regards to does it make sense? Isn't just a mobile design app working, but specifically retailers, as I talked about quite a bit, are both what I consider not only responsive but building specialty applications. So if you look at any retailer in the U.S., Macy's, Nordstrom's, so on and so forth, in the U.K., Marks & Spencer, not only are they responsive, but they also have their specific applications. Put right next to retailers, banks. Banks having specialty applications. Not only, I would say banks have gone even further. Most banks, especially around credit cards processing or banking applications for transferring money, all have specialty applications. All of them are looking to embed. They don't want to increase, as they're providing more services for their customers, they don't want to increase more calls into the call center. So banks are. Tech companies are predominantly more responsive than a mobile-first strategy. And then strangely enough, what's interesting is HRIT. So if you look at a workforce like Starbucks or a Costa Coffee in the UK, where their employees are mostly high school kids or college kids that don't have maybe computers, but certainly have a mobile device just to get employee information, sick time, processing, all that on a mobile device. Mobile first is huge right now. So that's a few examples, Andy.
And I will maybe ask a similar question to Neal, but we see big enterprise players are making mobile their cornerstone in their futures. What benefits are you foreseeing for integrating knowledge into mobile applications?
Well, I think a lot of it is pulling that contextual information and then therefore providing a better user experience. I mean, I'll give an example of a mobile app that I used recently with Alaska Airlines. The mobile app itself used my location such that it knew that I got to San Jose Airport early, and it knew my itinerary and said, hey, you've arrived at your airport early, so here are some suggested flights. I was able then to, for $25 fee, get a reserved seat on an earlier flight. So I think that's
a little creepy.
Well, I found it quite useful because between the time I walked from the rental car center to the security lineup, I had been booked and reserved a seat on an earlier flight. So I think that's the big thing about the benefits is it's just it's a better consumer experience when you get to leverage some of that contextual information that is available with mobile.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to close down. I'm sorry, but we're after the top of the hour by about 5 minutes. I do want to thank you all for coming today. I want to thank Chris Hall, Neal Haraguchi, and Chris Chilvers for coming today, and of course for Transversal to help with today's great presentation. I'll address this to the audience. If you want to review this event or send it to a colleague to view it later, this event will be archived for 90 days. You can use the same URL used today to either view or share it. And you can always navigate to any of our archived events at kmworld.com. And I want to point out, just for signing on today, thank you very much, you'll be in the drawing for a Google Chromecast, which I'm going to have to look up because I have no idea what that is. But we'll get you one at the end of the month, which is pretty close. So thank you. Goodbye from frigid New England, and hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.